10 of the downloads. It's on page Yud Dalid, bottom of the page, Zion, line 28. And we were speaking about what's the idea of Moshe Rabbeinu's tefillah. Since Moshe Rabbeinu was an usher, he was a rich person. A rich person, what does he need to daven for? Especially that Moshe Rabbeinu's riches, begashmias, reflected his riches, beruchnias. Therefore, he's not missing anything, not spiritually, not physically, more than not missing. Usher is even higher than just not being in a state of lack. And we explained that Moshe Rabbeinu's tefillah was for Am Yisrael, since Moshe Rabbeinu was the level of Das Elyon. Das Elyon is associated to the level of Ein Sof that's completely higher than the world, the level of Atik, as opposed to what the world is lacking and considers impactful on the world. That's the level of Memal Kalalmin, Soiv Kalalmin, the level of Atzilus, the 10 Sfiris, and the level of Ketzoinis HaKeser. So Moshe Rabbeinu wanted that Malchus, it should be, which is the level of Malchus, the Shoresh and Shams Yisrael, Knesset Yisrael, that should be rebuilt, just like the person that asked a reward from the king, that there's a certain country that needs to be rebuilt, please rebuild it. And that was the request of Moshe Rabbeinu, that Malchus should not just get from the level of Seder Ishtalshlus, because if it gets from the level of Seder Ishtalshlus, so then it's possible for it to become destroyed again. But by getting from the level of Ein Sof, the level of Moshe Rabbeinu was identified with, the level of higher than Seder Ishtalshlus, Pnimius Atik, Ein Sof, it's higher in the world, that way Malchus is going to remain. So that was the explanation of the Tfilas Ashir, that Moshe Rabbeinu, since he was on this highest, most level, was asking to bring down from his level into Malchus, into Knesset Yisrael. Now the Rebbe is going to question that. How does that fit in with the idea of tefillah? We always speak about, in other Amarim Chassidus, and we had this recently as well, if I remember correctly, the difference between tefillah and bracha. Tefillah means I'm standing down here below, and I'm requesting and drawing down a level that's higher than me, a level that's out of my reach, and I'm davening to the Eibishter to bring it down. Bracha is that I am standing above that level, and I can manipulate that level, and I can draw it down. Moshe Rabbeinu, we said over here, was on the level of Usher, meaning he had the level of Atik, the level of Das Elyon, the level of Ein Sof, and he wanted to draw that down to Malchus. It doesn't apply the word tefillah. Tefillah means that there's something that I'm coming from below to get. He was on that level already, and was trying to share that with Malchus. Why do we call that tefillah? That's going to be the question that he's going to pose right now. Line 28, Oizai. Sort of love when you understand. Lafi Hanal, according to what we explained in the previous ice. That Moshe Rabbeinu's tefillah, that the Hashem's essence should come down in Malchus, not nature Moshe with Das Elyon. That's because Moshe Rabbeinu is the higher level of Das. Therefore, it's in his capability to draw down this light in Malchus, the level of Das Elyon, the level of Hashem's very essence. Top of the next page, Yud Tesvav. If so, what Moshe Rabbeinu is doing, what he's drawing down from Ein Sof into Malchus, the revelation that he's bringing down into Malchus, is a level that's coming from above to below, because we said he's the level of the Ein Sof. He's the level that's higher than Seder Ishtalshlus. He's the level of Atzmus and Atik and Das Elyon, and he's going to bring it down from above to below. Now, in Tefillah Moshe, what's the idea that we call it a Tefillah for Moshe? We're calling it Tefillas Asher. It's the Tefillah of a rich person. The Tefillah Momat L'mayla, the entire idea of davening is that the person is down here below and he's reaching up for Hashem and trying to ask Hashem to give him something that he doesn't have. So the Rebbe explains how do we fit these two things in together. We could say the explanation this is when the Hamshacha comes down in Malchus in a way that's going from above to below. In other words, if Moshe Rabbeinu would do this without tefillah, he would just be, you know what? I'm on this level of Atik, I'm on this level of Asmer stuff, I'm on the level of Das Elyon, I'll just bring it into Malchus without resorting to tefillah. Even when the revelation is the essence of the Ein that's higher than the idea of any type of constriction. The Bechlolus, what level of the Ein is higher than the whole idea of the Tzimtzum, including also the Tzimtzum Rishon, the first Tzimtzum. It's talking about the essence of the light that no Tzimtzum touched over there. What he's referring to is as follows. There is in the Ein Sof Shalifnei Tzimtzum, the first Tzimtzum, where Hashem removed and put his entire oil on the side, it says there was in general 3 levels. First, there's 2 levels, but those 2 levels are divided into 3. There's the essence of the Ein Sof, and then there is the hispashtus of the Ein Sof, the expansion of the oil. In that itself, in the expansion of the oil itself, there is the hispashtus ha'oil that's shayach la'olamus, that oil that will eventually come down into the world, and it'll become a pnimius, and from that will come down the kav, and from that will become malachal almin. That's a hispashtus ha'oil in the oil of Tzimtzum that has a connection with the world. Then there is a hispashtus ha'oil shalamayla mishaychus lo'il. This is all below etzem oil. In the extension, the expansion, the spreading out of the oil, there's an oil that is, in a way, that is beyond having to do with the world, and that becomes a source for makif and for soiv kalam. And in general, these 2 oils, these 2 levels of hispashtus oil, are identified with the malach kalam and soiv kalam, because that's what they are the source for, what will eventually come after the 2. Chassidus explained that the Tzimtzum had different effects depending on which oil it is. It's also associated, this pashtus oil that's higher in the world is the shortish for the oil habligvul, and this pashtus oil that's shaykh lo'olamus, it has to do with the oil hagvul. So Chassidus explained that in the Tzimtzum Harishon, where Hashem took the entire earth that filled all potential space and moved it aside to be able to make a room for the kav and the worlds and so on, there were different effects that the Tzimtzum had depending on what level of oil it was. The level of hispashtus ha'oil hashayach la'olamus, or to put it differently, the shortish of the oil malachal almin, or the level of the koyach hagvul in the Ein Sof, that was actually nisamtzum, that was actually constricted and limited, that eventually that oil could become limited enough to come down to a kav and to come down to every single world and keli and level according. So that's a full-blown tzimtzum in that level. Then there's the level of the hispashtus oil that's higher than the shaykh's level, the oil habligvul, the level that's become the shortish for the oil hasoiver. Over there it says it was only noga bayat tzimtzum. The tzimtzum only touched it. And the tzimtzum only touched it, meaning because it didn't actually constrict that oil to come down, but its effect was to move it out of the way. So therefore it was called that it touched it. Then higher than hispashtus oil, higher than these 2 levels of hispashtus oil, there is etzem ha'oil. And etzem ha'oil is such a level that loy noga boyatzim. Once we've identified that terminology, that the tzimtzum did not even touch on the etzem ha'oil, so the Rebbe is going to say that even when we're dealing with etzem ha'oil, that over there, the hamshacha comes from a place that tzimtzum never affected it. Our problem was that if we drew down from a limited oil, from an oil that's connected with tzimtzum, so just like tzimtzum once upon a time affected the oil, so the same thing, Malchus, you're going to bring the Oyer into Malchus from levels that are affected by the Tzimtzum. It's not going to be lasting. It's not going to be a Kimnitz. Since Moshe Rabbeinu, we said yesterday, so the level of Atzmus, from the level of the essence of the Oyer Sof, where over there it's beyond all aspect of Tzimtzum. Therefore, if you bring that down into Malchus, that assures that the revelation of Malchus will be constant and everlasting. So the Rebbe is saying like this: even if you draw it down, the etzem ha'or shelo noga b'atzimtzum, but it's going to be in a way of coming from above to below. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one that's doing it. So then it's still not part of Malchus's world, and therefore it's liable to be lost. Let's see this inside. Line 9. Kol Makom still in all. Even the Zeshe Shayach Sheyistalach Ha'or Malchus. We're talking about the Etzem Ha'or, the fact that if we're saying Etzem Ha'or is not possible for it to leave Malchus, because not like the Spashtas Ha'or, not like Memale and Soiv Kalam, that they already are under the control of Tzimtzum. Etzem Ha'or was never touched by Tzimtzum, so if you bring that down into the fore, it's not possible that Etzem Ha'or will leave Malchus. It's because that Ha'or, the Etzem Ha'or, is beyond any idea of Tzimtzum. Like we said before, in the Etzem Ha'or, there was no actual Tzimtzum. In the Etzem Ha'or, there was no Leinoga by a Tzimtzum. It's totally beyond the idea of Tzimtzum. That is all from the perspective of the Etzem Ha'or, the perspective looking from above to below. But Malchus, when it comes concerning Malchus, it's still not the true idea of an everlasting building up of Malchus. How come? From Malchus's perspective, this is something that's being brought to Malchus. Malchus hasn't earned it. Malchus hasn't really connected with it. It's something being imposed upon it from the outside. So you could give someone an unbelievable gift, but he has holes in his pockets, he'll lose it. As great and as wonderful and as powerful the gift is. If Malchus did not draw this down, if this was only brought from above, so then it's possible that from Malchus's perspective, this oil will leave. Therefore, ensure that it will be a binyan adiyad, even from Malchus's perspective. So he says in line 13, the binyan adiyad, who the true idea of an everlasting building and edifice is, when this drawing down of Moshe Rabbeinu's level, the level of Atzmus or is drawn down in Malchus. It's not only coming from outside, coming from above, being imposed upon it from above, but it's also coming from Malchus itself, that Malchus is evoking this, Malchus is bringing this in. So tefillah Moshe, that's what it means, a tefillah for Moshe. Like we said before, what does it have to do with tefillah? If Moshe Rabbeinu is on that high level, so he brings it down. Tefillah means I'm on the bottom and I'm trying to pull it down to me. So he says the tefillah, Yavodas Nivraim, tefillah is the service of the created beings. It's the work of the creations. Therefore, what we draw down through davening is in such a way that it's connected with the mata itself, because it's coming from me. It's being derived from me, so therefore, I am the appropriate vessel for this. It's in a way that has a connection to the created beings. And also, it also is B'chein sphere. So Malchus Shorish on Nevroim. Therefore, it also has a shaykhus with the sphere of Malchus, the root of Nevroim. And also David HaMelech, who was sphere of Malchus, said, "V'ani Sfila, I am the level of Tefillah." So Tefillah has to do with the level of Malchus itself. But as we've spoken about in many places, Tefillah has a certain a deficiency in comparison if it comes from above to below, like brach. Line 20, El Sham Shocha, Tefillah. That's what's being drawn down through Tefillah in general. Kim since Tefillah is the service of the created beings. Therefore, what comes down through Tefillah is a type of Amshacha that's associated with the world. It's connected with the world. There's a relationship between it and the world. And therefore, since it's Amshacha that has a connection with the world, it is limited, and it's something that can be it can come down in such a way that will leave. And that comes about through Tefillah L'Moshe. So now we have joining two qualities. So then there's both advantages. We're drawing down the essence of the Ein Sof that's higher than a connection with the worlds. That's the level of Moshe Rabbeinu Das Elyon Pimis Atik Atzmos Ba'afal Pikei. Though it's a level that's higher in the world. Hamshacha comes down to Malchus. In such a way that it's connected and associated with Malchus itself. Any questions before we go on to the next page? Okay, so now the Rebbe is going to take it a step further, and he's going to explain that when we bring tefillah into it, when we bring it about through coming from below to above, it's not just that it makes it more lasting and it's more part of what Malchus is, but it's even greater than that. It's a level that the entire purpose of creation is fulfilled when it's coming from us. So he says on the top of page Tezai, even in more depth, one could say, the advantage in the Amshacha that happens when Moshe Rabbeinu does it in the way of a tefillah, in a way of davening, over if it would be drawn down just from above to below, that Moshe Rabbeinu, since he's on that high level, would just give that to Malchus. It's not just in the manner of how it's drawn down. That's what's coming down through the tefillah of Moshe is more associated with what's down here below, like we said, but rather it's also the Hamshacha itself is of a different quality and a different caliber. Before, we're just talking about you want to have the Hamshacha should last, it has to come from Malchus, it has to come from below. Here we're going to talk about that the advantage of when the Hamshacha is elicited from below, then the Hamshacha itself is of a different quality, even though seemingly we're drawing it down from the same level. Rebbe explains why in line 6. The idea behind this is that the reason for the fact that everything that was created in the 6 days of creation needs to be fixed up. It says that in the beginning of creation, it said Hashem created it to be lasos. What's it mean, lasos? Lasos, so the Chazal explained the word lasos also means tikkun, fixing up. In other words, Hashem created the world in such a way that nothing is completely ready. Everything needs to be fixed up. A person that's born needs to go through a bris milah. You want to eat food, you got to grind the wheat, etc., and so on and so forth. Why was the world created in such a type of way? Hashem is perfect. Therefore, his creation should be perfect. So the Rebbe explains in line 8, because the entire intention of the creation is for the sake of a person's service. Therefore, the world was created in such a manner that how does it reach its perfection? How does it reach its completion? It should be through a person's actions and work and service. And then when a person does that and adds the final touches, through this, a person becomes a partner with Hashem in the creation because he is like concluding and finishing it off. This is also the reason why the way the worlds came into being from Spheres HaMalchus, it says it was through Tzimtzum, that the light was caused to be lacking from the level of Malchus, meaning that, like we were talking about in the whole Maimon, that Malchus became darkened, Malchus became limited, the Tzimtzum impacted Malchus. Like it says in the pasuk, Atos, he says, Ashmayim Goimer Ato Chaser Hey, it says, you made the heavens. It says the word, and the Shemaim, the Oretz, etc. But interestingly enough, Ata is written without the letter Hey. Ata is usually spelled Aleph Tav Hey. Why is it written without the letter Hey? To indicate that Hashem created the world, including also the source of the world, which is Malchus, in a way that was lacking in the vision. The fact that Malchus becomes a source to bring the worlds into being, that you made the heavens, it's through Malchus losing from it 5 forms or faces. There are, in general, there are the levels of Arich Anpin, that's one of the faces. There's Abba, which is Chochmah. There's Ema, which is Bina. Zeir Anpin, which is the Midas, and Nukva, and there's Malchus. So in all of these things, there was a deficiency. Malchus was lacking all these things. Ata Chaser Hey, Ata is missing the letter Hey, missing all of this. That the Malchus was created in a way of in a powerful symptom. So why was that so? For the same reason, because Hashem wanted us to fill that lack. Hashem wanted to make us a partner in creation. We could say this lack and deficiency that was in Malchus, that from Malchus was created the world. That is the root and the cause why the world is that way. Why is our physical world that way? The everything that was created in the 6 days of the creation needs to be fixed up and added the final touches. Why? Because it all came from Malchus that is created in a way that's lacking and still needs to be fixed up. He says, why was this Malchus created this way? Because Hashem wanted that filling up what Malchus is lacking should be through the person's service. That's why, as we're soon going to explain, it has to be tefillah. It has to be from below to above. Below to above indicates the person's service. Line 23. To add the gamsha at tzimtzum hoyerakba oira shaykh la'ilmus. Though, like we said before, the actual tzimtzum, the actual constriction, was the spashtas ha'oir that has a connection, association with the world. But oir hagvul, the limited light, which is shirish mamali, which eventually become the root of Amalek. And not only that, but it also touched begama oir abligvul shirish hasoivit. And the tzimtzum also touched the infinite light of the Eibishter, the oil that's higher in the connection with the world, the root of the world of Soivuklam. But the difference between them is, like I mentioned before, one was the actual oil was constricted, and one was that it made it transcendent, removed it. Ella, he says in the brackets, the effect of the tzimtzum in the limited light, is in the light itself, that the light itself became constricted. That the light became lowered and became limited until it became a source to bring the worlds into being. The effect of the tzimtzum in the infinite light of Hashem is only the removal, to make sure that it doesn't touch, it doesn't shine into that space which Hashem reserved for the world. That's why we say in the great circle, which means that infinite light, the tzimtzum touched it. It was a touch of the tzimtzum over there. It didn't actually constrict it, but it touched it. It affected it. The Inyan Negiyas HaTzimtzum, the idea that the tzimtzum touched that oil is rak sham be'igul, that the light should only be over there in a way that it is in a circle, meaning it's surrounding it. Shouldn't become revealed outward, but not that the oil itself was constricted. So that is all in the oil of the source for Namala, in the oil of the source of Soiviv, the oil Agvul, the Shorish, the oil Bligvul, etc. These were all where the tzimtzum impacted. But in the essence of the light of the Eibishter, there was no tzimtzum whatsoever. This means that the tzimtzum also didn't touch the etzem ha'or, like I mentioned previously. Because this is a light that the tzimtzum never impacted, so that light can actually become revealed in the world. Because that light, the tzimtzum never spoke to it. The tzimtzum never engaged with it. Since the tzimtzum never engaged with the etzem ha'or, it's possible that the etzem ha'or could come down into the world. Yet, with kol makim still and all, since the purpose and intention and all the revelation, even the revelation of the essence of the light is beyond the category of the world, which etzem ha'or is even higher than soiviv kalam, higher even than the root of soiviv kalam, and like we said, the ispashtas ha'or that's l'mayla mishrax lo'ilmas. But why did the etzem ha'or even come into being? Ubishvil Yisrael, it's for the sake of Yidden. It's so that Yidden should be able to do their avodah. So therefore, the system was put into place that Yidden should be mamshech all the giluyim. Lachein gam mamshachas orzei ad avodah sa'adam. Therefore, even drawing down the etzem ha'or, that in and of itself, the etzem ha'or is a type of oil that is not limited by the worlds, and the tzimtzum never impacted it, and therefore can come down regardless. Still in all, the purpose is, the intention of it is, that it should be done dafka through our service, just like everything in creation was made in such a type of way that our service needs to complete it. Just like the physical world was made that way, just like Malchus was made that way. The same thing, that Malchus should be able to get from the etzem ha'or, it's necessary for us to be the ones that draw it down. It has to come from us, from below. And that's why, the Bible is going to explain, it had to be tfilas ha'asher, tfilah l'moshe. That the drawing down from the etzem ha'or has to come l'mata l'mayla, because the whole entire purpose is not, it's not about, well, Malchus is lacking, we got to figure out how to fill that up. No. Why was Malchus lacking? Why was Malchus created in such a way that it's missing something? Because we want that the lack of Malchus should be filled by our avodah. So it's not just enough to bring into the picture Moshe Rabbeinu has connections, he could draw it down. No. It needs to be in a way that it's coming from down here below, in a way of tefillah l'Moshe, that Moshe Rabbeinu is drawing it down through his tefillah. Because Moshe Rabbeinu is drawing it down through his tefillah, then it has to do with Avodah Son of Roy. Okay, we'll stop over here. Any questions?